The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete floor of my garage. It was past midnight, and I was elbow-deep in the engine of my '98 Ford pickup, the same truck that had been faithfully hauling my construction tools for the past decade, while my wife complained it was embarrassing to be seen in. My phone buzzed on the workbench, a text from Lisa. "Sold your wedding ring. In Cancun with Brent. He's actually fun, unlike some people. Don't wait up." I stared at the screen, oil-stained thumb hovering over the keyboard. 22 years of marriage, reduced to a casual text message sent from a beach resort I'd never been able to afford. My reply was simple. Great. But my next move wasn't. I wiped my hands on an old rag and pulled up our joint banking app. With a few taps, I froze her debit card and transferred our vacation fund, all $3,000 we'd been saving for a trip to Yellowstone, into my personal account. The phone started ringing within minutes. I let it go to voicemail. Danny, you son of a bastard, my card isn't working. I'm stranded at the resort bar and Brent's already maxed out his credit card on drinks and... I deleted the message before she could finish. Lisa had always been ambitious. When we met, she was 22 and working as a secretary at a real estate office, dreaming of becoming an agent. I was 25, fresh out of trade school, with calloused hands and big plans to start my own construction company. Back then, she said she loved how real I was, how I worked with my hands, how I wasn't like the fake corporate guys she'd dated before. Funny how things change. She got her real estate license 5 years ago and immediately started making more money than me. That's when the complaints began. My truck was too old. My clothes weren't nice enough for her office parties. I embarrassed her in front of her new friends. And Brent? Brent was her ex-boyfriend from high school. The guy she dumped for me back when I had potential, and he was just another pretty boy with no direction. Now he owned a chain of fitness studios and drove a Mustang convertible. I guess potential has an expiration date. The garage door creaked as I pulled it down, sealing myself in with the smell of motor oil and disappointment. Tomorrow, I'd have to face the music. Tonight, I had some planning to do. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Dad? It was Emma, our 17-year-old daughter. Mom called me crying. She says you're being psycho and controlling. I can't believe you'd strand her in Mexico like that. I'm staying at Aunt Rachel's until you grow up. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. Even my own kid was against me. Perfect. I cracked open a beer and sat on my workbench, looking around the garage that had become my refuge. This was where I came when Lisa was entertaining her real estate friends, when Emma was too busy with her phone to acknowledge my existence, when the house felt more like a hotel where I happened to pay the bills. The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted a villain? I could work with that. Lisa came home 3 days later, sunburned and furious. I was in the kitchen making coffee when she slammed through the front door, dragging her designer luggage behind her like a defeated general retreating from battle. "You left me stranded," she hissed, throwing her purse onto the counter. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I took a slow sip of coffee. About as humiliating as finding out your wife is screwing her high school boyfriend, I'd imagine. Her face went red. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken of her text messages before she'd left. Messages that went back months, not days. Unless "I can't wait to feel you inside me again" means something different in real estate. She grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. Those are private. Not when they're sent from our shared phone plan, sweetheart. Lisa's whole body seemed to deflate. She'd been caught red-handed, and we both knew it. But instead of apologizing, instead of showing even a hint of remorse, she straightened her shoulders and went on the attack. You know what? Good. I'm glad you know. Maybe now you'll understand that I need more than this. She gestured around our modest kitchen with its 20-year-old appliances and faded linoleum. I need someone who has ambition, who wants to grow, who doesn't spend every evening in a garage playing with old trucks. Playing? I set down my coffee cup carefully. I've been working 60-hour weeks for the past 2 years to pay for your real estate courses, your new car, Emma's college fund. And what do we have to show for it? This house that's falling apart, a husband who shows up to my work events in Carhartt pants, a life that's going nowhere. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of our ancient refrigerator. 22 years, and this was what it came down to. I wasn't sophisticated enough for her new life. So what happens now? I asked. Lisa lifted her chin defiantly. Now you accept that things have changed. Brent and we're not hiding anymore. We're going to be together, and you're going to have to deal with it. In my house? It's half mine. Not for long. Something in my tone made her pause. For the first time since she'd walked in, Lisa looked uncertain. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It means you might want to call a lawyer, sweetheart. Because if you think I'm going to roll over and play while you parade your boyfriend around town, you don't know me as well as you think you do. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Don't threaten me, Danny. That wasn't a threat. That was a promise. I walked past her toward the garage, pausing at the kitchen door. Oh, and Lisa? You might want to check your credit score. I canceled our joint credit cards this morning. Wouldn't want you to be embarrassed at the grocery store. The sound of her screaming followed me all the way to the garage. Word travels fast in a town of 12,000 people, especially when it involves scandal. By the time I got to Murphy's Tavern that Friday night, half the construction crew was already there, nursing beers and pretending they hadn't been talking about me. Danny! Big Jim Murphy called from behind the bar. The usual? I nodded and took a seat at the end of the bar, away from the crowd. Jim slid a Budweiser across the scarred wood surface and gave me a look that was part sympathy, part curiosity. Heard you and Lisa are having some troubles, he said, wiping down glasses with practiced efficiency. Heard that, did you? Small town, Danny. People talk. What are they saying? Jim glanced around the bar, then leaned closer. They're saying she's been stepping out with Brent Kowalski. They're saying you found out and went a little crazy, froze her out of Mexico or something. I took a long drink. And what do you think? I think if my wife was screwing around, I'd have done worse than cancel her credit cards. A voice behind me cut through the bar noise. Well. Look what the cat dragged in. I turned to see Mike Torres and Steve Brennan approaching. Mike and I had been friends since high school. We'd started our construction careers together, been each other's best men, spent countless weekends working on each other's houses. Steve had joined our circle about 10 years ago when he moved to town. But the looks on their faces weren't friendly. Mike, I nodded. Steve. Heard you've been making quite a scene, Mike said, sliding onto the stool next to me. Embarrassing Lisa all over town. I raised an eyebrow. Embarrassing her? Steve leaned against the bar. Come on, man. Stranding her in Mexico? That's cold, even for you. Even for me? I set down my beer. What's that supposed to mean? Mike and Steve exchanged a look. Look, Danny, we've all seen how you treat her. Always putting her down, making her feel bad about her success. Are you serious right now? She came to Rachel's house crying yesterday, Steve continued. Said you've been emotionally abusive for years, that she was afraid to leave because she didn't know what you'd do. The bar seemed to go quiet around us. I could feel other conversations stopping, ears turning our way. And you believed her? Mike shrugged. Lisa's not a liar, Danny. And honestly, we've seen how you get when you're angry. Remember when you put your fist through the wall at my barbecue last summer? That was because you said my truck was a piece of junk. See? That temper of yours. Lisa says you've been getting worse, more controlling. I stood up so fast my stool scraped against the floor. Lisa says? Lisa, who's been screwing her ex-boyfriend for months? Lisa, who cleaned out our vacation fund to pay for her little love nest? That Lisa? The bar had gone completely silent now. Everyone was staring. Mike's face hardened. You don't talk about her like that. Like what? Like a cheating wife? Because that's what she is, Mike. I've got the text messages to prove it. Even if that's true, Steve said, it doesn't excuse how you've been treating her. A real man would handle this with dignity. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Dignity? She announces she's leaving me in a text message from another man's bed, and I'm supposed to have dignity. You're supposed to be better than this, Mike said. We thought we knew you, Danny. But this vindictive, petty side of you, it's ugly, man. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. These were my friends, guys I'd known for decades, and they were taking her side without even hearing mine. So that's it? I asked. 20 years of friendship and you're just going to believe her sob story? Mike stood up. We believe what we see. And what we see is a guy who's lost his mind because his wife finally got tired of being held back. Held back? My voice was getting louder. I worked double shifts to pay for her real estate school. I took out a loan so she could buy that fancy car. You resented every penny of it, Steve interrupted. We could all see it. The way you'd roll your eyes when she talked about her sales. The way you'd make little comments about her fancy friends. You never supported her dreams. The worst part was, there was a grain of truth in what they were saying. I had resented it, at least sometimes. When she started making more money and acting like she was too good for our old life, yeah, I'd gotten bitter. But that didn't make me the villain in this story. Get out of here, Danny, Mike said. Before you say something you'll really regret. I looked around the bar. Every face was turned toward us, and none of them looked sympathetic. These were my people, my community, and they'd already made up their minds. I threw a 20 on the bar and walked toward the door, but I stopped just before leaving and turned back to Mike and Steve. You want to see vindictive and petty? I said. Keep watching. I spent the weekend doing research. Not the kind that involved private investigators or hacking into email accounts. I wasn't going to break any laws, but I had advantages that Lisa didn't know about. 22 years of marriage meant I knew all her passwords, had access to all her accounts, and understood her patterns better than anyone. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair with Brent had been going on for 8 months, not the few weeks I'd assumed. They'd been meeting at the Riverside Motel every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, when Lisa claimed she was showing houses to out-of-town clients. She'd been using our joint credit card to pay for the rooms, but the real kicker was the third party involved, Rachel Morrison, Lisa's best friend and fellow real estate agent. Rachel had been covering for Lisa, providing alibis, even helping coordinate their meetings. The same Rachel who'd been coming to our house for dinner every Sunday, who'd been Emma's godmother, who'd sat across from me at our kitchen table and asked how things were going with a straight face. Rachel, who also happened to be Mike Torres's girlfriend. That explained why my oldest friend had turned against me so quickly. Rachel had been feeding him Lisa's version of events for months, painting me as the controlling, abusive husband who was holding back his poor, innocent wife. I was looking at bank statements on my laptop when Emma came home. She'd been staying at Rachel's since Lisa got back, and seeing her walk through the front door was like watching a stranger enter my house. Hey, kiddo, I said, trying to keep my voice normal. She barely glanced at me. I'm just getting some clothes. Emma had always been Lisa's daughter more than mine. Not because I loved her any less, but because Lisa had made sure of it. Every school event, every milestone, every important moment had been orchestrated to showcase Lisa as the devoted mother, while I was just the guy who paid the bills and fixed things when they broke. Can we talk? About what? She was already heading upstairs. About what's happening with your mom and me. She stopped on the stairs and turned back. At 17, Emma looked exactly like Lisa had at that age. Blonde hair, green eyes, and a stubborn set to her jaw that meant she'd already made up her mind about something. You mean about how you're trying to control her and ruin her life? Is that what she told you? She didn't have to tell me. I have eyes, Dad. I've seen how you treat her, how you make her feel guilty for being successful. I closed the laptop and stood up. Emma, your mother has been having an affair. So? Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to find someone else. The words hit like a slap. My own daughter, the little girl I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with homework and scared away bad boyfriends, was looking at me like I was the enemy. You don't mean that. I do mean it. Mom deserves to be happy, and if that's with Brent instead of you, then good for her. Emma turned and ran upstairs. I heard her bedroom door slam, followed by the sound of dresser drawers being yanked open. I sat back down and stared at the bank statements on my laptop screen. Every transaction told the story of my marriage's slow destruction. Hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts I'd never seen. All paid for with money I'd earned swinging a hammer and running electrical wire. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you've been having a rough time. If you want to know the whole truth about Lisa and Rachel, meet me at the diner on Oak Street tomorrow at 7 p.m. Come alone. A friend. I stared at the message for a long time. It could be a trap, someone trying to make me look even worse. Or it could be exactly what I needed. Emma came back downstairs with a suitcase, her face red from crying. I'm going back to Rachel's, she said without looking at me. Emma, wait. No, Dad. Just... No. I can't be around you right now. She left without another word, and the house fell silent around me. I looked at the text message again, then typed back a simple reply. I'll be there. The Oak Street diner was nearly empty when I arrived the next evening. I recognized the person sitting in the back booth immediately, Janet Kowalski, Brent's ex-wife. They'd divorced about 3 years ago, and she'd moved to the other side of town with their 2 kids. Janet was a small woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She'd been a nurse before the divorce, but I'd heard she was working double shifts at the hospital now to make ends meet. Danny, she said, as I slid into the booth across from her. Thanks for coming. Janet, I have to admit I'm curious. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like she was trying to warm herself. I wasn't sure if I should reach out. But after what happened at Murphy's the other night, well, I figured you deserved to know what you're really dealing with. Which is... Janet reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. Brent's not just cheating with your wife, Danny. He's done this before. Multiple times. It's his pattern. She opened the folder and spread out photographs, bank statements, and printed emails. This is from when we were married. He had affairs with at least 4 women that I knew about. Always married women, always women with money or connections that could help his business. I picked up one of the photographs. It showed Brent with a blonde woman I didn't recognize, both of them coming out of what looked like an expensive restaurant. That's Patricia Wells, Janet said. She was married to a banker. Brent convinced her to leave her husband and invest in his first gym. When the money ran out, so did he. Why are you telling me this? Janet's laugh was bitter. Because I know what it's like to be made the villain in your own story. When Brent left me, he told everyone I was crazy, jealous, controlling. He convinced our friends that I was making up stories about his affairs. Sound familiar? It did. Uncomfortably so. There's more, Janet continued. Rachel Morrison? She's not just covering for Lisa. She's been helping Brent target married women for years. She feeds him information about her real estate clients, who's having marriage problems, who has money, who might be vulnerable. You're saying this was planned? I'm saying your wife was selected, Danny. Rachel probably told Brent all about your marriage problems, about Lisa's frustrations with your financial situation, about how she felt underappreciated. He knew exactly which buttons to push. Janet pulled out another document. This is a loan application. Brent's been trying to expand his gym business, but he's leveraged to the hilt. He needs investors, and Lisa's been making good money in real estate. The pieces were falling into place. This wasn't a romantic affair. It was a con job. Brent was using Lisa for her money and connections, and Rachel was helping him do it. Why should I believe you? I asked. Janet smiled sadly. Because I have proof. And because I know you're going to want revenge. The question is, do you want to get even, or do you want to get ahead? She slid a business card across the table. That's my lawyer. She specializes in divorce cases involving fraud and financial manipulation. If you can prove that Lisa's been using marital assets to support Brent's business ventures, you might be able to get everything back and then some. I pocketed the card. What do you get out of this? Satisfaction. Brent destroyed my life and got away with it. If helping you means he finally faces consequences, then I'm all for it. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the sun was setting over our small town, casting long shadows across the parking lot. There's something else, Janet said. Rachel's been skimming money from her real estate clients, inflating closing costs, pocketing the difference. She's been using Lisa's good reputation to cover for her, and now Lisa's unknowingly become an accessory. How do you know all this? Because my sister works at the title company. She's been seeing irregularities in Rachel's transactions for months, but couldn't prove anything. Until now. Janet stood up and gathered her papers. You have a choice, Danny. You can keep playing the victim, or you can start playing chess. But if you're going to make a move, you better make it count, because once Brent realizes you're onto him, he's going to disappear, and he'll take Lisa's money with him. After she left, I sat in the diner for another hour, thinking. My phone kept buzzing with messages. Lisa demanding to know when I'd be home, Emma asking if I'd signed her college application forms, Mike texting about some work project. But I ignored them all. I had planning to do. I waited 3 days before making my move. 3 days of acting normal, of pretending I didn't know what I knew, of watching Lisa come and go with a spring in her step while she thought she was getting away with everything. On Thursday afternoon, I drove to the Riverside Motel and parked across the street. Lisa's car was already there, along with Brent's Mustang. Room 237, same as always. I didn't go knock on the door. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I called the one person I knew would want to see this. Emma, it's Dad. I need you to come to the Riverside Motel on Highway 9, right now. Dad, I'm at school. Skip your last class. This is important. I'm not going to help you spy on Mom. I'm not asking you to spy. I'm asking you to see the truth. There was a long pause. What truth? The truth about why your mother really left me. The truth about Brent Kowalski and Rachel Morrison. The truth about who's been lying to you. 20 minutes later, Emma pulled up in the Honda Civic we'd bought her for her 16th birthday. She got out of the car looking angry and suspicious. This better be good, Dad. I handed her a folder containing copies of everything Janet had shown me, plus the bank records I'd printed out showing Lisa's payments to the motel. Read it, I said. Emma flipped through the papers, her expression changing from annoyance to confusion to shock. This says Mom's been coming here for 8 months. Every Tuesday and Thursday. She told you she was showing houses to out-of-town clients, right? Emma's hands were shaking. These bank records. She's been spending thousands of dollars. Our money. Money from our joint accounts. Money that was supposed to go toward your college tuition. A car door slammed across the street. We looked up to see Brent and Lisa coming out of room 237 laughing about something. Lisa was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, something expensive and red that clung to her body. Emma made a small hurt sound. She looks happy. She is happy. She's been happy for months while lying to both of us. We watched as Brent grabbed Lisa's ass and whispered something in her ear that made her giggle like a teenager. They kissed passionately before getting into their separate cars. Emma was crying now. I defended her. I called you horrible names. I chose her side. You chose the side you thought was right based on the information you had. But I should have known. I should have seen... Hey. I put my arm around my daughter's shoulders. This isn't your fault. None of it is your fault. We stood there watching the motel until both cars had disappeared. Then Emma turned to me with a look I'd never seen before, cold, calculating, angry. What are we going to do about this? We? She made me an accomplice, Dad. All those times she asked me to cover for her, to tell you she was at work when she wasn't, to make excuses for why she was coming home late. I helped her cheat on you. I helped her steal from our family. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw myself reflected in her eyes. The same sense of betrayal, the same desire for justice, the same realization that sometimes the people you love most are the ones who hurt you worst. Are you sure you want to be involved in this? Emma wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Mom wanted to play games? Fine, let's play. That night, Emma and I sat at the kitchen table making lists. Not revenge fantasies or illegal schemes, but a careful, methodical plan to expose the truth and protect ourselves legally. First, I said, we need to document everything. Every transaction, every lie, every piece of evidence we can gather. Emma was taking notes on her laptop. I can help with that. I know Mom's passwords for most of her accounts. How? She gave me a look that was pure teenage disdain. Dad, she uses the same password for everything. Brent, 1985. His name and birth year. Not exactly creative. Jesus. I've been thinking about this all evening, Emma continued. Mom's not just cheating on you. She's been lying to me about everything. College money, family finances, why you guys have been fighting. She made me think you were the problem. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Don't apologize. Just help me understand what we're dealing with. I spread out the documents Janet had given me. According to this, Brent's business is failing. He owes money to investors, suppliers, landlords. He's been using affairs to fund his lifestyle and his gym expansion. And Rachel's been helping him target women? It looks that way. She identifies potential marks through her real estate work, then introduces them to Brent at social events. Emma pulled up something on her laptop. Look at this. Mom's Facebook posts from the past year. She turned the screen toward me. Every single photo of her with Brent was taken at some kind of real estate industry event. Wine tastings, networking mixers, award ceremonies. I studied the photos. Lisa looked radiant in all of them, hanging on Brent's arm like a trophy wife. In the background of several shots, I could see Rachel watching with a satisfied smile. They've been planning this for a long time, I said. So, what's the endgame? Does Brent actually want to be with Mom, or is this just about money? I thought about what Janet had told me about his previous affairs. I think he's planning to convince her to invest in his gym expansion, then disappear when things get complicated. Emma's fingers flew over the keyboard. Mom's been researching business loans. Look at her browser history. How to invest in a fitness franchise, small business partnership agreements, divorce and asset division in Illinois. The last search hit me like a punch to the gut. Lisa wasn't just having an affair. She was planning to leave me and take half our assets to fund her new life with Brent. There's something else, Emma said quietly. I found texts between Mom and Rachel from last week. They're planning to file for divorce right after Christmas. Rachel's been advising her on how to hide assets and make you look like an unfit husband. She turned the laptop toward me again. The text conversation was damning. Rachel, make sure you document every time he loses his temper. We need to establish a pattern of emotional abuse. Lisa, he threw his tools around the garage yesterday when the truck wouldn't start. I got it on video. Rachel, perfect. My lawyer says that kind of evidence will help with the custody hearing. Lisa, custody? Emma's 17. Rachel, college expenses, health insurance, support payments. Trust me, you want to be seen as the victim here. I stared at the screen, feeling sick. They'd been plotting to destroy my reputation, take my daughter, and leave me with nothing. Dad? Emma's voice was small. Are you okay? I looked at my daughter, the one person in my life who hadn't betrayed me, who'd been brave enough to face the truth even when it hurt, and felt something cold and determined settle in my chest. I'm fine, kiddo. But your mom and her friends are about to find out what happens when you underestimate a guy who works with his hands for a living. Emma smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. What do you need me to do? The Riverside Motel was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. It was also the kind of place that had security cameras in the parking lot and kept records of who paid for what room. Getting access to those records required a certain amount of creativity. You sure about this? I asked Emma as we sat in my truck outside the motel office. Dad, I'm 17, not 7. I can handle talking to a desk clerk. Emma had dressed the part. Conservative clothes, worried expression, the perfect picture of a concerned daughter looking for her missing mother. Remember, I said, you're not lying about anything important. Your mother really has been coming here, and you really are worried about her. Got it. I watched through the office window as Emma approached the desk clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s who probably saw more drama than a soap opera. Writer, Emma was good. I could see her gesturing, looking distressed, pulling out her phone to show a photo of Lisa. The clerk's expression softened, and she started nodding sympathetically. 5 minutes later, Emma came back to the truck with a slip of paper. Room 237, every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 8 months, she said. Paid for with a credit card registered to Lisa Morrison. Morrison? She's been using Rachel's last name. Probably to hide the charges from you. That was a new wrinkle. Using a false name to rent hotel rooms could be considered fraud, especially if she was using our joint credit card to pay for it. The clerk also said there have been complaints about noise from that room. Apparently, Mom and Brent aren't as discreet as they think they are. What kind of noise? Emma's cheeks turned red. The kind that gets you asked to keep it down. We drove to our next stop, Brent's gym. It was a sleek, modern facility in a strip mall on the other side of town, all glass and chrome and motivational posters. The parking lot was mostly empty at 2 in the afternoon. His lease is up for renewal next month, I told Emma as we sat watching the building. According to Janet's research, he's 3 months behind on rent and owes money to half the suppliers in town. So he's desperate enough to do something stupid. As if on cue, Brent's Mustang pulled into the parking lot. But he wasn't alone. Lisa was with him, and she was carrying what looked like a folder of documents. Is that what I think it is? Emma asked. I pulled out a small pair of binoculars I'd brought from my toolbox. Through the gym's front windows, I could see Lisa and Brent sitting at his desk, papers spread out between them. Lisa was signing something. Son of a bastard, I muttered. What? She's signing loan papers. She's actually going to invest in his gym. Emma grabbed the binoculars. How much? I can't tell from here, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's enough to matter. We watched for another 20 minutes as Lisa signed document after document. When they were finished, Brent came around the desk and kissed her passionately. Through the window, I could see him whispering something in her ear that made her laugh and nod. I think I'm going to be sick, Emma said. Don't. We're going to need clear heads for what comes next. Which is... I started the truck. Time to have a conversation with some old friends. Murphy's Tavern was crowded for a Thursday night. I found Mike and Steve at their usual table in the back, along with 3 other guys from our old construction crew. They looked up when I approached, their expressions ranging from uncomfortable to hostile. Danny, Mike said carefully, didn't expect to see you here. We need to talk. Steve crossed his arms. If you're here to cause trouble, I'm here to tell you the truth. All of you. I pulled out a chair and sat down without being invited. The table went quiet. 3 weeks ago, you all decided I was the villain in my marriage. You took my wife's word that I was abusive, controlling, that I'd driven her away with my terrible behavior. Danny, Mike started. Let me finish. I placed a manila folder on the table. This contains bank records showing that Lisa has been using our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms where she's been screwing Brent Kowalski twice a week for 8 months. It contains evidence that Rachel Morrison has been helping coordinate their affair and covering for them both. It contains proof that Brent is a serial con artist who targets married women for their money. The table was silent. I opened the folder and spread out the documents. This, I said, pointing to a bank statement, shows Lisa spending $3,000 of our vacation money on hotel rooms and expensive dinners. This shows her signing loan papers to invest in Brent's failing gym business. And this shows Rachel Morrison skimming money from her real estate clients to fund her own lifestyle. Mike picked up one of the documents, his face pale. Jesus, Danny. Where did you get this? Does it matter? The question is, do you still think I'm the bad guy here? Steve was reading over Mike's shoulder. This says Rachel's been stealing from clients for over a year. Which means your girlfriend is a criminal, Steve. And she's been using Lisa to legitimize her business while helping destroy my marriage. The weight of what they were seeing was sinking in. These were good men, honest men who worked hard for their money and believed in doing right by their families. The idea that they'd been manipulated into supporting a con job was hitting them hard. Why didn't you show us this before? Mike asked. Because 3 weeks ago you didn't want to hear it. You'd already made up your minds that I was the problem. Tom Bradley, one of the older guys in the crew, spoke up. So what are you going to do about it? I gathered up the papers and put them back in the folder. I'm going to make sure everyone in town knows exactly who Lisa Morrison and Rachel Morrison really are. I'm going to make sure Brent Kowalski faces consequences for his actions. And I'm going to make sure that when this is all over, the truth is the only version of events anyone remembers. How? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. The annual Founders' Day festival is this Saturday. Half the town will be there, including the mayor, the city council, and most of the local business owners. Lisa's real estate office always has a booth there, and I'm betting she and Rachel will be working it together. Danny, Mike said slowly, what are you planning? I'm planning to give a speech, a very public, very detailed speech about fraud, adultery, and the importance of knowing who you're really doing business with. Steve looked horrified. You can't do that. You'll destroy her. She destroyed herself. I'm just going to make sure everyone knows about it. I stood up and tucked the folder under my arm. You all made your choice 3 weeks ago. You chose to believe the worst about me without hearing my side of the story. Now you know the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. I was almost to the door when Mike called after me. Danny? Wait, I turned back. We're sorry, he said. We should have listened to you. We should have known better. Yes, I said. You should have. And then I walked out into the night, leaving them to wrestle with their consciences. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold, perfect weather for the annual Founders' Day festival. Main Street was blocked off for vendor booths, food trucks, and a small stage where local politicians and business leaders would give speeches throughout the day. I arrived early and found the Morrison real estate booth right where I expected it to be, prime location near the stage, with a banner advertising trusted local service since 1987 and photos of Lisa and Rachel smiling professionally. Lisa was there setting up, wearing a navy blue dress that probably cost more than I made in a week. She looked confident, successful, like a woman who had her life together. Rachel was with her, arranging brochures and adjusting their display. They didn't see me watching from across the street. Emma appeared at my elbow. You ready for this? Are you sure you want to be here? This is going to get ugly. Dad, she's been lying to me for months. She made me complicit in her affair, then tried to turn me against you. I want to see her face when the truth comes out. At 10 o'clock, Mayor Patterson took the stage to kick off the festival. He gave the usual speech about community values, local business, and supporting our neighbors. Then he introduced the day's speakers, local business leaders who would talk about their contributions to the town. Lisa was scheduled to speak at 11:30. I spent the morning walking around the festival, talking to people I'd known for years. Word about my marriage troubles had spread, but so had whispers about the evidence I'd shown at Murphy's. The story was getting more complicated, and people were starting to ask questions. At 11:15, I made my way to the front of the crowd gathered around the stage. Lisa was standing off to the side, reviewing her notes and looking nervous. She spotted me in the crowd, and her face went white. Mayor Patterson introduced her as one of our most successful local businesswomen and invited her to the microphone. Lisa walked to the podium on unsteady legs. She looked out at the crowd, her eyes finding mine, and I could see her hands shaking. "Thank you, Mayor Patterson," she began. "I'm honored to speak to you today about the importance of trust in business relationships." She made it about 3 sentences into her prepared remarks before I started walking toward the stage. "Excuse me," I called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I think we need to talk about trust." The crowd murmured and turned to look at me. Lisa gripped the podium like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Danny, please," she started. "No, Lisa. You wanted to talk about trust? Let's talk about it." I climbed the steps to the stage. "Let's talk about the trust I placed in my wife of 22 years. Let's talk about the trust our neighbors place in their real estate agents. Let's talk about what happens when that trust is betrayed." Mayor Patterson tried to intervene. "Danny, this isn't the time or place." "This is exactly the time and place." I turned to face the crowd. "How many of you have done business with Morrison Real Estate? How many of you trust these women with the biggest financial transactions of your lives?" I pulled out the folder of documents. "Because I think you should know that Lisa Morrison has been using her position and reputation to cover for financial fraud. I think you should know that Rachel Morrison has been skimming money from her clients' closing costs. And I think you should know that both of them have been working with Brent Kowalski to con married women out of their life savings." The crowd was silent. Lisa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "These are bank records," I continued, holding up the papers. "These show my wife spending thousands of dollars of our joint money on hotel rooms where she's been conducting an 8-month affair. These show her signing loan documents to invest in her lover's failing business. These show a pattern of deception, fraud, and betrayal that goes far beyond simple adultery." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Is this true, Lisa?" Lisa looked out at the sea of faces, neighbors, clients, friends, and seemed to crumble. I can explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "Explain how you've been lying to everyone in this town while presenting yourself as a pillar of the community? Explain how you've been stealing from the family that trusted you? Explain how you've been working with known con artists to defraud other families." Rachel had appeared at the edge of the stage, her face pale with panic. "Danny, stop this. You're destroying people's lives." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what was already destroyed." I turned back to the crowd. "Brent Kowalski is a serial predator who targets married women for their money. He's done this before, and he'll do it again unless he faces consequences. Rachel Morrison has been his accomplice, identifying vulnerable women through her real estate work and helping orchestrate their seduction and financial exploitation." The crowd was getting restless. I could see people pulling out their phones, recording everything. "And Lisa Morrison?" I looked at my wife, sobbing at the podium. "Lisa Morrison chose to throw away a 22-year marriage and destroy her family for a man who sees her as nothing more than a source of income. She chose to lie to her daughter, steal from her husband, and betray every person who trusted her." I walked to the microphone and spoke directly into it. "My name is Danny Morrison. For 22 years, I've been a faithful husband and father. I've worked honest jobs, paid my taxes, and tried to be a good neighbor. 3 weeks ago, my wife left me for another man and tried to convince this entire town that I was an abusive monster who drove her away." The crowd was hanging on every word. The truth is exactly the opposite. I was the victim of a carefully planned con job designed to steal my money, destroy my reputation, and leave me with nothing. And it almost worked, because good people wanted to believe the best about someone they trusted and the worst about someone they barely knew. I stepped back from the microphone and looked out at the crowd. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I'm asking for your attention. Pay attention to who you trust. Pay attention to who benefits when families are destroyed. And pay attention to the difference between being a victim and being a villain. The silence stretched for what felt like hours. Then, slowly, people began to clap. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to matter. I walked off the stage, leaving Lisa crying at the podium and Rachel nowhere to be seen. Emma was waiting for me at the bottom of the steps, tears in her eyes, but a smile on her face. "Dad," she said, "that was amazing." Behind us, I could hear the crowd dispersing, voices raised in heated discussion. The story would spread through town like wildfire, and by evening, everyone would know the truth. "Is it over?" Emma asked. I looked back at the stage, where Lisa was being comforted by Mayor Patterson and a few remaining supporters. She looked broken, defeated, like a woman who'd lost everything that mattered. "Yeah, kiddo, it's over." We walked away from the festival together, leaving the wreckage of my marriage and Lisa's reputation behind us. I felt lighter than I had in months, like a weight I'd been carrying had finally been lifted from my shoulders. 3 days later, Lisa moved out of the house. A week after that, Rachel Morrison's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. Brent Kowalski left town without saying goodbye to anyone, leaving behind a trail of unpaid debts and broken promises. Emma decided to stay with me for her senior year of high school. We had a lot of work to do, rebuilding trust, healing from betrayal, figuring out how to be a family of 2 instead of 3. But we had something Lisa and her conspirators never had: the truth on our side. And in the end, that made all the difference.